Well, our next guest has filed a lawsuit against President Biden and other top-ranking government officials for allegedly working with social media giants such as Meta, Twitter, and YouTube to censor and suppress free speech.
This includes truthful information related to COVID-19, election integrity, and other topics under the guise of combating what they call misinformation. Joining us now to discuss, Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt. Tell us about what you're really going after. I mean, a lot of people think that Elon Musk is going to be kind of the high-tech savior and come in and have free speech out there. We'll leave that to the side. What is it you're going after? Because a lot of people feel like, especially during the last election cycle, there were a lot of things suppressed.
Yeah, this is really Missouri versus the Ministry of Truth. So we filed this lawsuit with Louisiana against the Biden administration. And really two of the most corrupt players right now, and two of the biggest institutions, big government and big tech, for colluding to suppress speech and violate the First Amendment. Ultimately, the government doesn't get to outsource its censorship to private parties, which is essentially what they've done here by working hand in hand and colluding with them. And they do it in a couple of different ways, guys. First, big tech has some special legal benefits. Section 230, for example, doesn't allow them to be sued like a normal publisher would. They're considered an open platform. So what happens is those on the left threaten to take away those special protections if they don't threaten or if they don't censor more. Secondly, and most obviously, is when Jen Psaki and Joe Biden and Fauci are communicating directly with Facebook and flagging posts that they find to be, quote, disinformation, having them take it down. They are directly colluding with those entities to suppress speech. And so the natural culmination of all this now is this Ministry of Truth that's been created, this disinformation governance board. It ought to strike fear in the heart for freedom-loving Americans everywhere that the government's going to tell you what you can say and when you can say it, what's truthful, what's not. This stuff is nonsense. That's why we filed the lawsuit.
Eric, I hate to do this to you right now. If you could stand by, we want to go to Madison, the ATF having a press conference related to that attack on a pro-life location.
The Supreme Court has certainly heightened people's awareness of this particular issue, but I do not have any information about that. I can do some research, and I'll get back with you on that. But I don't think this is something that we see often a lot here in Madison.
What's the message to Madison residents?
Sure. The message to Madison residents is that there is no place in Madison for any type of hate speech, for any type of violence, or any type of property destruction to advance any cause. And if you're thinking about doing something like that, I would recommend that you not. It doesn't look good for your cause. It doesn't look good for our community. And that's not what we expect. One of the things that I really like about Madison is that, we expect to live in a safe community. We don't expect these things to happen in Madison. And I don't think any community expects it to happen there, no matter if you're in Madison or you're in California. That's not the community that we want. And so my message is, if you know something about this, please give us a call so we can make sure that those persons who are responsible are held accountable. And if you know someone who may be thinking about doing something like this, please give us a call as well so we can prevent it. The best way to respond to crime is to prevent it in the first place.
Will these for sure be federally charged?
I cannot answer that question, whether it will be for sure federally charged.
Are you aware of any additional threats at this time?
No, I'm not aware of any additional threats.
Has the FBI or any federal agency got any heightened sense or any heightened alerts as far as being on the lookout for organizations that may make use stuff based on the Supreme Court decision?
Not at this time, sir. Chief, given what you know and what you've seen so far, how difficult is this going to be to solve and find people who did this?
Yeah, it's a hard question to answer. I mean, we solve cases, based on forensic evidence, digital evidence, and most importantly, through the cooperation of our community. And we have a great community here in Madison, so I do anticipate that we will be able to solve it. We want to take our time and make sure that we do it correctly.
This for the ATF, Molotov cocktail that was used for actually holding Molotov cocktails. How dangerous is that as far as igniting the entire building? Is it pretty?
We won't comment on that. Okay. Thank you so much.
Especially if you your name, it's someone entitled.
Yes. Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Robert Payne, ROBERT PAYNE, FBI Milwaukee.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, just watching there, the police chief in Madison, Wisconsin, there was an attack on a pro-life organization there, and arson and vandalism. I don't know if we still have Eric Schmitt. Do we still? Eric, I don't know if you were watching there, but you as Attorney General of a state, when you observe something like that, like if you had an attack like this in your area, what would you be thinking to do next? Is there any way you would help this kind of investigation?
Well, I think you'd be working with all the law enforcement officers, the different agencies involved, whether state, federal, or local, making sure a thorough investigation takes place. That's the first order of business. But I also think it's important for political leadership to be out there condemning these acts of violence as well. We did not see that at all from Joe Biden. Even as people were protesting Supreme Court justices' homes, they were slow to say anything at all condemning it.
Is that, by the way, I'd hate to interrupt you. Is that illegal to go to a Supreme Court justice's house and possibly put them? Isn't that threatening in and of itself?
Well, it depends on what the behavior is and where it's at, right? But either way, this is out of like third world country banana republic stuff, right? And you got the president of the United States refusing to condemn it. We cannot allow individuals who serve on the Supreme Court to be intimidated by these radical folks. It's just not. And by the way, this leak is part and parcel of that. It's likely meant to intimidate. You don't need to be rocket science to figure that out. And there's no place for that in this country. There's no place for political violence either.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great point. Eric, also the police commissioner there is saying, quote, there is no place for hate speech, violence, or destruction. This is not something we usually see around here. And I think that's when it becomes scary, when you might maybe think you see these types of things in L.A. or New York City. But when you're going to kind of these smaller, you almost think of very typical all-American towns, people are getting scared.
Yeah, and it's completely wrong. I mean, you saw this in the a lot of the rioting and what were so-called mostly peaceful protests, where were actually riots, in the mainstream media often making excuses for people taking the law into their own hands. There's no excuse for it. And when you see this kind of stuff we saw last night in front of the justices' homes, when you see this kind of stuff, it's incumbent upon the president of the United States to get out there and condemn it and tell people that there are ways for your voice to be heard, but this is not one of them.
Okay, let's get back to your original topic we were talking about, because you're trying to sue essentially the high-tech companies for suppressing free speech, that the government is working with them. I think your theory is to suppress that free speech. I believe, and I could have done my homework a little better, that there was a case the other day in which a judge, and I think it was a federal judge, said that a court case could not proceed because free speech is not guaranteed by Twitter or any other social media company. Can you address that?
Yeah, so a lot of the cases so far have been about whether or not those private companies themselves, against the private companies, big tech, can whether they're allowed to do it or not under their terms of service or not. And we have argued this, that they're choosing sides, right? Which speech to silence, which voices to silence, and tends to only be on the conservative side. What's unique about this lawsuit that Missouri just filed, though, it's actually against the government. It's against big government, who clearly cannot suppress speech in any way or violate the First Amendment, because they have outsourced that to the big tech companies. And I think when we get into discovery here and we're able to ask questions, take depositions, get documents, emails, we're going to find that Fauci was communicating directly with Facebook, that Jen Psaki is directly flagging with Facebook. The government doesn't get to extend that power to a private entity. And that's what's unique about this lawsuit, and why it's a landmark suit, why we think we'll be successful.
Interesting.
Yeah, very, very interesting points there. Eric Schmitt, thanks so much.